Who are you? The two personalities. Welcome back to our exploration of the unconscious. In our previous talks, we uncovered the mysteries of the unconscious, the adaptive unconscious, and who's really in charge of our minds. Today, we're diving into the question, who are you? We'll enrich this discussion with classic theories and research from the field of personality psychology, including Timothy D. Wilson's Strangers to Ourselves. Who are we really? Is our personality a single, unified thing, or does it reside in two places? The adaptive unconscious and the conscious self. Today, we'll unpack what this means, why it matters, and how science continues to illuminate this fascinating question. If you watch until the end, I'll share some practical scientific steps to help you discover who you are. I'm Henry, and you're watching Day 52 of my channel, Henry's Millions, where I dive deep into psychology, spirituality, and the mind, helping you unlock your personal potential and understand the forces that shape your life. So about 6 months ago, I was at a bar when a woman suddenly asked me, "Who are you?" Her question caught me off guard. No one had ever asked me so directly, especially not in a social setting. And a few of my friends were listening, and I felt a bit awkward. So I paused, trying to come up with a smart or a wise answer, and ended up saying something like, I am what you see, I am me. But since then, I haven't been fully satisfied with my response. So this personal moment made me realize just how challenging it is to answer the question, who are you? It's a question that seems simple, but is deeply complex. It's a question that many of us avoid or answer superficially. But today we're going to explore what science reveals about who we really are. So let's begin with the foundations. Okay, Gordon Allport, a well-known name in psychology, described personality as the psychological processes that determine our characteristic behavior and thought. In his 1961 work, Allport introduced the ideas of cardinal, central, and secondary dispositions. What the F are these words, Henry? Well, Allport used dispositions to mean personality traits, like kindness, honesty, friendly. Cardinal dispositions are rare and define someone's whole life. Central dispositions are the main traits that people notice about you. And secondary dispositions are more like quirks or habits that show up in certain situations. So while a rare few might be dominated by a single defining trait, most of us are shaped by a handful of central traits that guide our thoughts and behaviors across situations. So trait theory identifies stable characteristics: extroversion, conscientiousness, agreeableness, neuroticism, and openness. These are known as the Big Five. Now, these traits are widely used in personality tests to predict behavior. And this model underpins many popular personality tests used in research and hiring, based on the idea that these traits are relatively stable and they predict behavior across situations. My upcoming video is going to tear into these corporate personality tests, but you have to subscribe for it. So now here's the twist that changed everything. For decades, psychologists believed that personality traits like being outgoing or conscientious were stable measures and could reliably predict how we'd behave. Thanks, researchers, for reducing us to automatons. I think that was the title of my last video. So this belief was so strong that many relied on these traits to understand themselves and others. However, in 1968, Walter Mischel shook the foundations of personality psychology by revealing a surprising truth. The correlation between these traits and actual behavior was modest at best. Let that sink in. In other words, knowing someone's personality score often told you little more than a horoscope might about them. This is not me saying this. It reflects the common critique in the psychological literature. So this discovery sparked what's known as the person-situation debate. It showed that sometimes the situation we find ourselves in can tell us more about our behavior than our supposed stable traits. So personality is more than fixed traits. It's a system of if-then patterns. For example, if you're criticized in public, you might shut down. If you're praised, you might open up. Now, this insight opens the door to understanding the adaptive unconscious. So the hidden engine behind much of who we are. You might remember that from my previous videos. I hope you watched them. So the adaptive unconscious. Imagine a backstage crew running much of the show without your awareness. It's a collection of mental modules operating outside of your conscious thought and shaping your perceptions, judgments, and even your goals. That was a revelation when I first found that out, that our adaptive unconscious has a hand in our goals. So this idea isn't new. Alport's, quote, automatic self, and 19th century thinkers like William Hamilton foreshadowed it, suggesting that much of who we are operates on autopilot, out of conscious view. So the adaptive unconscious interprets the social world in consistent ways, forming the backbone of our personality. And we develop automatic if-then rules, like if I feel ignored, I'll get angry, that guide our reactions. So these patterns are often invisible to us, but they shape our spontaneous, unplanned actions. For example, you might be in a meeting with someone when someone makes a dismissive comment. Before you even think about it, you feel a flash of irritation and respond rudely or abruptly. So that's your adaptive unconscious in action. It's automatic, habitual, and outside your deliberate control. Another key feature is called chronic accessibility. We talked about that in the last video. Watch it later. Chronic accessibility. It's a tendency for certain ideas or mental constructs to be more readily activated or energized in your mind than others, right? Due to frequent use. So mental ideas, mental constructs, they're activated in your mind because you've used them frequently. So certain categories like honesty or friendliness, I'm simplifying the heck out of this, they become default filters. So shaping what we notice and remember. So when meeting new colleagues, one person might instantly pick up on who seems trustworthy, while another is more attuned to who appears competent. So these default filters, they operate automatically, shaping our first impression and guiding our attention. So the adaptive unconscious is remarkably efficient to processing vast amounts of information. Get this, over 11 million pieces per second. This is stimuli, input, compared to just 40 pieces of information per second for our conscious awareness. Whoa, that's huge. So the adaptive unconscious detects patterns, generates gut feelings. That's where your gut feelings come from, and helps us make decisions quickly. But it can also be rigid, slow to update, and prone to errors, like stereotyping, self-fulfilling prophecies. It's an evolutionary adaptation. It's fast, but it's not always accurate. I wonder if you can make yourself more aware, more consciously aware of relevant things, opportunities. Can that impress in your unconscious mind and make you more successful than everyone else? Maybe I'll look into it for a future video, but only if you like and subscribe. All right, now let's turn to your conscious self. Your conscious self. You are fully conscious right now, despite what some spiritual, holier-than-thou gurus might say about you and I. It's the part of us that narrates our life story, the conscious self. This is me, we describe when someone asks, "Who are you?" It's built from our beliefs, our values, and the stories we tell about our lives. Dan McAdams calls this our life narrative. "Henry, why the heck are you mentioning so many names? Do I need to know them?" You really don't, but I thought I'd give credit to the people that came up with these ideas. So our life narrative, it's a continuing story. I mean, some of it is common sense, but they gave it more meaning. They imbued it with meaning. Our life narrative is a continuing story that integrates our past, present, and imagined future. So we hold mental images of who we want to be, who we ought to be, or who we fear becoming, our possible selves. So our explicit motives and self-theories are the goals and drives that we can articulate, often shaped by culture, by family, by personal ideas. And this conscious self narrates our life story. It integrates the past, present, and the future. So while it helps us make sense of experiences and plan ahead, these narratives sometimes rationalize rather than reflect our true motives. For example, someone might see themselves as a resilient explorer after frequent career changes, even if circumstances force those changes. Thank God for rationalization. How else could I look back at my past mistakes and failures and convince myself they were all part of some brilliant master plan? So while our adaptive unconscious shapes our automatic reactions, our conscious self tries to make sense of them, like sometimes accurately, sometimes not so accurate. Okay, so building on this, our values and core beliefs. We have to mention that, right? Like kindness, honesty, or I am capable, I am resilient. These shape how we see ourselves and guide our decisions. Listing your top values helps clarify what truly motivates you. I would strongly recommend that you take a moment and list your top 5 values or beliefs. Which ones guide your biggest decisions? Which ones feel most you? And reflecting on your core beliefs and values, it's essential for understanding who you are because they provide the foundation for your motivations, your behaviors, and your self-concept. Closely related to this is narrative identity. It's the evolving story you tell you about yourself, or you tell others about yourself. So it reflects on key life events and can reveal themes that shape who you are. Why not writing about or telling a story about a turning point in your life? Like what themes or lessons stand out? How does this story shape your sense of who you are today? So much recommendation for writing and journaling. I don't know if anyone does that anymore, but it's very useful. I do it, so I recommend it. Research shows that a well-constructed narrative identity is linked to psychological well-being and helps us maintain a stable sense of self over time. All right, so let's talk about these two selves, the two systems, conscious and adaptive unconscious. So research shows that the adaptive unconscious and conscious self are relatively independent. Whoa, what the heck? Yes, relatively independent. They're inside you right now. I'm talking to one of them. The other one's unconscious. They're relatively independent. They each predict different kinds of behavior. The adaptive unconscious drives spontaneous, unmotored actions, how you act when you're not self-conscious. And the conscious self shapes deliberate, controlled decisions, like career choices or moral dilemmas. So sometimes these two selves, they collide. A friend believes she's not a procrastinator, but her actual behavior, always waiting until the last minute, suggests otherwise. Her friends, observing her actions, may have a more accurate sense of her tendencies than she does herself. So we have implicit, non-conscious, and explicit, conscious motives that also diverge. They often diverge. Sometimes someone may consciously believe they're driven by a desire to help others, but their behavior shows a stronger need for recognition. And studies show that peer reports can sometimes predict our behavior better than our own self-reports. You heard that clearly. I've seen this, and it's been proven. It's all over the literature. Peer reports can predict your behavior many times better than you can, especially when it's spontaneous or unmonitored actions. So understanding these two systems can help explain why we sometimes surprise ourselves, right? Have you ever felt like you've done something and you were surprised by what you did? It was like spur of the moment, some reaction, some response. That's exactly what we're talking about. And why others may see us more clearly than we see ourselves. So the implication, much of what we know about ourselves resides outside of conscious awareness. Introspection is useful for accessing conscious thoughts and memories, but not for uncovering the workings of the adaptive unconscious. Introspection, remember? I don't know, I'm giving you some kind of visual here. It doesn't do it. So it doesn't uncover the workings of the adaptive unconscious. You can introspect and reflect until something comes home, but it's not going to work. In fact, too much introspection can sometimes lead to confusion or less accurate self-insight. For instance, you might think you remain calm under pressure, but your actions in real crises might tell a different story. So how can we know ourselves? Since we can't directly access the adaptive unconscious, we must observe our behavior, our own behavior, and how others react to us. Feedback, real-world examples, they often provide more accurate self-insight than introspection or introspection alone. So like biographers, right? Biographers, we weave together our actions, our feelings, others' reactions in a story that hopefully captures some of the truth about who we are. Most of us see ourselves through rose-colored glasses. Think about that for a second. Like we think we're kinder, we think we're more generous, and probably 100 other things, or more talented than we really are. And the research suggests that these positive illusions can boost confidence and resilience as long as they don't become delusional. For example, someone may believe they're an exceptionally generous person, but consistently overlook situations where they act selfishly. You know someone like that? This self-enhancement can help with confidence, but it shouldn't go unchecked. So once we develop a conscious theory about ourselves, we tend to notice evidence that supports our self-view and dismiss exceptions. Remember, confirmation bias, I have at least 1 or 2 videos about biases. Look them up. One of them is 18 biases, and there's another one before that on my channel. So interestingly, studies that show that people whose conscious goals align with their non-conscious motives experience greater emotional well-being than those whose goals are out of sync. For example, if someone consciously pursues a high-powered career to please others, but their deeper motive is for security and belonging, this mismatch might lead to frustration or chronic dissatisfaction. Okay? So back to Gordon Allport, he highlighted that personality consists of a unique mix of central traits. And Walter Mischel challenged this by showing behavior varies with situations, introducing if-then behavior patterns, right? Modern research supports the adaptive unconscious as a complex system guiding much of our behavior outside of our awareness. And studies also reveal that people experience multiple context-dependent selves. You heard that. A 2023 study found that while curiosity and openness drive self-insight, accurate self-knowledge remains difficult because feedback and real-world behavior often reveal much more than introspection. So, Henry, how the heck can we use this knowledge? Great talk, but how can we use it? All right. Use it to answer the question, who are you? So you don't get stumped like I did. Here are practical, science-backed steps to help you discover your true self. Number 1, observe your behavior like a scientist. Keep a detailed journal of your actions. Everybody's suggesting you keep a detailed journal. I don't know if anybody does that, truly. Keep a detailed journal of your actions, feelings, and reactions across different situations for at least a week. I have a journal. You can do it online. Just do it. So it helps you spot patterns you might otherwise miss. Writing is good. Look for consistent if-then patterns, how you typically respond when certain things happen, okay? Number 2, seek honest, specific feedback. Ask your friends or colleagues for concrete examples of your behavior, not just adjectives, right? Not just descriptions, concrete examples of your behavior. Compare their observations with your own so you can uncover your blind spots. Ooh, I could talk for days about blind spots, guys. We have blind spots. You don't know what you're completely oblivious to them. We all have them. So that's where friends come in. So research shows that peers often predict our spontaneous behaviors better than we do ourselves. I know people don't want to hurt each other's feelings, but you can talk about it. You can have an understanding. It's constructive criticism. Number 3, experiment and reflect. Do you like how I said that? So try new activities or roles with a clear hypothesis about how you might respond. That's interesting, just kind of guess how you might respond. Write down your predictions, then reflect on the outcomes to refine your understanding of yourself. It allows you to test your assumptions and update your self-concept. Self-concept, that's very important. Number 4, update your self-narrative based on evidence. Update your self-narrative based on evidence, facts. So use the data from your observations, feedback, and if you do, experiment to revise your story about who you are. Be open to change and complexity. And updating your narrative keeps your self-concept accurate and flexible. I was thinking sometimes we have this old self-concept based on some challenging or troubling experiences. So we build this narrative or story about ourselves and we maintain it for years. So we don't allow ourselves to move on from the past. This is similar. All right, so you remember my night at the bar when I struggled to answer, who are you, from that woman. So after everything we've explored today, I still don't have a single perfect answer because I need more time. But I do have a better process for discovering and articulating who I am today. And you can too. So next time someone asks you that question, maybe you'll pause and reflect on your own patterns, feedback, stories, and give an answer that feels a little truer to who you really are, or at least seal the deal. So in essence, who are you? It's not a question with a simple fixed answer. You're a complex interplay of conscious stories and unconscious patterns. And the key to self-understanding lies in becoming an active investigator of your own life, observing, testing, revising your self-concept with curiosity and humility. So who are you really? I welcome you to share your experiences and reflections in the comments. Let's learn from each other. So thank you for joining me into this deep dive into the science of self-knowledge. And if you found this talk helpful, please show some love. Like the video, subscribe to my channel, and until next time, keep exploring you. Every time.